Hi, we're going to get started here in just a moment. I think we're waiting for our panelists to join. Let me double check here. There's Susan. Awesome. There you
I
are.
thought I was on, and then I realized that it still had that join button. I'd been sitting there. I was waiting for Hey.
Hey, so glad you're here. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you today about owning a short-term rental as your side hustle.
One of my favorite topics.
I love it. And we're going to try to go live on Facebook. So
All right.
Here we go. Okay. It's funny. I think we're there. So I'm going to keep going with you.
And I know that whole Facebook Zoom to Facebook Live is really hard to know if you're trying to do both ends of it.
So we'll see. Well, hopefully we got that to work. But I'm going to get our deck ready. That's going to help guide our conversation. But as I do that, is it all right, Susan, if I just hand it over to you to give a little intro? You have this awesome background as a former marketing exec at Verbo, and then now in your current venture of doing more kind of coaching and counseling of kind of second careers and side hustle careers.
No, I'm happy to introduce myself. I'm Susan Tormellon, and I had a 30-year corporate marketing degree, primarily in technology companies. So I worked at Expedia for 3 years in the HomeAway software group. So I got to work regularly with small and medium business owners who were professional property managers, and we had software that helped them work their business better. And a couple of years later, after working with entrepreneurs and small businesses and medium-sized businesses for pretty much the last 10 years in some capacity, I went ahead and started my own business, and it's called Camp Do It. And we are an online course company, and at some point we'll do live events as well. And what we do is we help people generally over 50. A lot of times it leans women, but it doesn't have to be women. And we help them plan, launch, and grow side hustles and side businesses, and also side hustles and side businesses for the intention of using them as retirement businesses, whether a part-time retirement business or a full-time retirement business. Most people don't want to wait until they retire to start that. You can start growing it while you still have a full-time job. And so we have a small community on Facebook, a private community group that has about 300 people. And then, so I get the opportunity to interview a lot of people who either have small businesses already that are side businesses, or they're thinking about it. And interestingly, a lot of people in that group have vacation rentals. So that seems to be a really popular side business. And we're going to talk more about it, but there's a lot of reasons that it's a really positive, popular and lucrative side business.
So I think with that, we'll jump in. Thank you for that interest to your background, Susan, and to Camp Do It. And for those of you on the line who don't know Astro, we are a professional society and not-for-profit focused on development and education for short-term rental homeowners. So we have a free site with a ton of resources, business directory, and other helpful articles and blogs. And then we also have free membership and paid membership, which gives you different levels of access to a community. And this is just a quick screenshot of what the community looks like. And it's really a way to take that dialogue happening on Facebook that can sometimes feel difficult to navigate and help you really be able to go directly to the specific areas of short-term rental that you're interested in. And then we have other industry partners and friends. We work with Penn State to do research and blog contents and just some others. So our goal is to be a neutral place within the industry to bring accurate education and information together for short-term rental homeowners. And as Susan said, she is the CEO of Can't Do It and former marketing exec at Expedia. And though with Can't Do It, Susan, like you said, you focus on just overall kind of second careers or side hustles. Today, we're going to obviously talk in a lot more detail about having a short-term rental as your side hustle.
Yes.
So the first question we have is, with your previous work experience, there's a lot of interaction with professional property managers, and that could mean someone who's managing other people's homes and maybe have 10 or over 1,000. But they all started from somewhere. And now you teach people, how to launch and grow this side business. Just how do these two relate?
Right. Well, business is business. And I think that's kind of the biggest point here is that whether you have one short-term rental or you're managing 100. Now, let's get real. If you're managing 800 or 2,000, that elevates business out of small business to like medium, larger business, right? I mean, those people have their own laundry services and all kinds of employees. But when you're talking a smaller professional company or you're talking an individual, it's about running a business and it's about hospitality. And except I'm going to add one caveat to that. So if you self-manage your own vacation property, you are in the hospitality business. Those professionals are in the hospitality business. It's about serving a customer. It's about being a good communicator. It's about keeping your word on whatever your promise of your brand is. So that's where they're very, very much alike. The other thing is, I think, the vacation rental industry from the professional standpoint is getting further and further along in using technology. And for somebody that has a side business, the more you can automate, the more technology you can use, the more processes you have in place, the better it's going to be because you're managing it while you also have a full-time job or while you run another company. So I think those two, where it might have been different 5 years ago, those two are also kind of similar in that everybody's trying to use technology to be profitable, smarter, deliver better service.
I think that's a great point, and that this industry has even changed in the last just even 2 years, whereas you can have one home now and find technology to help you distribute your home on both Vrbo and Airbnb, even have your own website. And that technology is actually pretty affordable, even if you just have one home. So it's pretty amazing how much professionalism that you can have really, even with just one home.
Right. And the marketing tools available now make it a lot easier, a lot faster. The social media tools, all of it together makes you, even as an individual with one home, function really efficiently.
So I guess on that note, we are in the business and we have a sense of, all of this technology out there, but how do people usually get started?
I grabbed a few examples of people that I've talked to in really the last 3 months, and everybody gets into it a little bit different. So the first person is a woman named Robin, and she got married. And so now there's 2 over 50 adults who have 2 homes. What are they going to do? Well, she turned hers into a short-term rental. And she is loving it. And I'll tell a few stories about what she's learning maybe in question 3, but she self-manages it and she uses, the traditional distribution method. So she's on Airbnb and Vrbo. So that's how she got into it. Love and having an extra asset, right? And then another person I know, and this is a totally different story. They live in a small town in the Midwest. And the house across the street from them was kind of run down and it had a really nice owner, but they kept getting renters. And then at one point they decided to put it up for sale. And she got tired of looking at this rundown home from her porch. So she and her husband just bought the house across the street. They fixed it up. And now what's interesting is a few years later, she loved the hospitality. She loved the renovation. She just bought a historic home in their city downtown, and they're renovating it, and it's going to have a coffee shop, a flower shop, and two vacation rentals up above. So this went from a little, I don't like looking at that house across the street, to a full-on side business, right? And she has other thoughts, her and her husband, of the next step. Then there's another woman I know, had a vacation cottage in Maine, her and her husband. And over time, they bought the one next door. They bought another one. Now they have 5 vacation rentals that they manage. So that also happens a lot, where people buy, have a home. Oh, maybe with the second one, the kids are growing up, or it'd be fun if the cousins could come out, and it sort of goes from there. And it's a nice way to do it because you buy as you can afford, right? And then my last example is a woman named Julie, and Julie has a full-time job and a side business, but she loves to travel to North Carolina and had some money and wanted a third stream of income. I was trying to figure out what to do. So she bought a home that she plans to use 3 or 4 weeks a year, but the rest of the time she's turning it into a vacation rental. It's going so well. Now she's just buying a second vacation rental purely as an investment property. So everybody gets into it for different ways. Some people go in strictly for investment. Other people, it's accidental. But either way, it usually works out really well.
Yeah, I love the stories of where the side hustle almost becomes the main hustle, that maybe it is you have one, and then 10 years down the road you had 5, you quit your other job, and now these 5 homes are like your full-time job. And maybe it's not even full-time for you if it's seasonal. So you
Right.
still, it's really interesting how you can build out what works for you.
Right. Well, and I'll digress here because we're going to talk about it anyhow, but it's a nice segue. And we were talking about how you know how much to fix up a home, right? Because you get into it and you're like, oh, I need to fix that or paint that or do the patio, or maybe it needs a hot tub. And people will tell you it needs all these things, but you don't always have to start that way. And I actually had a conversation with the woman that have the 5 cottages in Maine, and she was telling me, all the plans she had for renovating. And I said, well, are you booked right now? She was like completely booked for like the whole season and into next year. And she's been booked like that for years. I'm like, well, do you really even need to do any updates? I mean, people obviously like your cottages. You're getting 5-star reviews. And it's not that you shouldn't. I mean, if that makes you happy, if that improves the value of your real estate and your property, go ahead. But a lot of times you can start without those kinds of renovations. And the first example I gave, Robin, she's basically improving her property as she makes revenue. So she said, I have 3 months, and then I've got some extra revenue, and then I fix up the patio, another 3 months, and then I replace the furniture, another 3 months. And so she's funding the improvements on her home through the vacation rental revenue.
Yeah, I love that point, and that you don't have to have everything perfect to start.
Right.
And you might be surprised how quickly you can start generating revenue. But we can keep going. So this is a really key question, right? Because in the examples you provided, these folks maybe continued to do it on their own, but it can also be income for you, even if you say, I don't have time right now, I need to completely give this to someone else. And maybe you're giving a little of the revenue away because you're paying someone else to do it. But ultimately, how do you make this decision?
Right. And I think another set of people I know had a house in Colorado, and they were really upset hiring a professional management company because they're like, that's 25% of the revenue. And I was like, yeah, but how are you going to do this? You live in Texas. You both have full-time big jobs. Like, what happens if a toilet breaks? What are you going to do? And they're like, oh, well, the neighbor next door. I'm like, do you really think the neighbor next door is at midnight? And it's funny because there is that shock factor when people outsource, right? And but the best part is you can go back and forth if you have to. You could have your cottage, you could rent it yourself for a year or two, which isn't a bad idea, because then you start to really understand who's attracted to your, to your property. If you're serving their needs well, you also get a database so that you can market to them. So there's a lot of benefits to that. But if all of a sudden you have a brand new job and you have, kids getting married and you have all kinds of things going on, there's nothing wrong with saying, this year I'm going to outsource it. The other thing that's interesting is, of those people, 2 of them completely do, of the examples I gave, 2 complete manage it themselves. They do everything. They even do a lot of the repairs themselves if something breaks that they can. The person with the cottage, though, she has a hybrid model because she doesn't live super close to the property. So she does all the marketing, all the booking, all the communication with the guests, all the rebookings, upselling and marketing and things. She sells arts and crafts that she makes in her cottages that people buy. So she's got a lot going on, but she has a caretaker and a housekeeping staff that actually turn over the houses, make sure everything's ready. They've got the on-call service. And then the last person that I'd mentioned, who had a full-time job and a side business and was now getting into vacation rentals, she completely outsourced the whole thing. She's delighted. Her place is like almost 100% booked right now. It's renting for a price she's really happy with. So for her, that was a great option. So I guess the question is really going back to, how do you decide? And the way you decide is by, one, what's your objective? How much money are you trying to make? And you have to figure in what your costs are going to be, right? The other one is, do you enjoy hospitality? Some people do, and some people may not. This truly may be a business venture, or it may be an opportunity for them to have a vacation rental they couldn't afford just on their own, but they don't want to talk to guests and get phone calls at 10 in the morning and all of that. So it's really about your goal your financial objective, your love or not love of hospitality, and also the proximity to the home you're renting. If you are far away from a home, even a 2-hour drive, somebody in Frisco, Colorado, who lives in Denver, that can be a real difficult situation if there's snow on the ground and something breaks, or somebody's unhappy, or the locks don't work, right? And then you've got this network of people you're calling and hoping they show up. So proximity becomes a really important factor to consider.
Yeah, no, and we, so there are 2 different power courses we offer at Astro too. One is Tech Toolbox, which is actually going to be launched in a few weeks on May 18th. And that course, we talk about kind of these, how to just, if you're doing it yourself, kind of the technology. But the other course, we're still locking in the days for June, is Investment Strategy and Financial Tools. And in that course, we actually give you kind of a checklist of things you should ask yourself. If I'm going to run this myself, honestly answer, like, are you prepared to, and kind of all those things, right? And like you just said, location, proximity, and how do you make that decision? So we try to give you in that course a little more specific direction. And like you said, what I love about this is you could go 1 year, do it this way, and the next year do it the other, like you said. So
the one benefit I do think, if you enjoy hospitality, of doing it yourself, assuming you have the time and you're close enough, is that you become your marketer and you love your property. And sometimes I think that really communicates well. When you love your property, you know the ins and outs, you've made it especially cozy or welcoming or luxurious, and you now have a database of those names, which means you can start building a community. You can have an Instagram, you can give people offers that had stayed there before. So there is something to be said for that, for sure. But yeah, professional teams, you're in safe hands.
Yeah. No, really good point. And that there's ways to do this, a few different ways to do this. So yeah, I guess, because you provide this kind of professional coaching and support for folks looking to build a side hustle, how would someone work with you? How would they do that? It's like, there's all these resources. It's really can be overwhelming. So to be able to talk to someone like yourself could be a huge help.
Right. Well, the way I typically work with people is through our course. It's called the Side Hustle Formula, and it gets you from the idea. So you would come in with, I want to have a vacation rental, or I already have a short-term rental property. And then over a 12-week period, or as long as you want to go, you get to launch. And so I think the important thing, whether somebody worked with me or not, is to really think about the vacation rental as a business. And sometimes it's really easy to think of it as a vacation home that you're making some money on. But when you think of it as a business, you're looking at really, what are your objectives financially? How are you going to make those? What's your plan B if it doesn't happen, right? A pandemic hits, and that ended up working out really well in the end for vacation rentals, but it didn't work out so well for hotels, right? So what's your plan B? You want to know, if I don't make this much money, what does that mean? You want to look at your competition. Just like any business, whether you're a donut shop or you're doing marketing consulting, what other vacation properties are in your area? How are they marketing themselves? What makes you unique? Do you have privacy where all the other, people in your general area are on busy streets? Do you have a coffee shop nearby? And we talk a lot about that whole product idea, because when you're renting a vacation rental, it's not just the home typically. It's where is it located? It's what else is nearby. It's what events am I going to do? It's why am I coming to town? All of those things come into play on what your home offers and how you market it. And then it goes back to like what I mentioned before, really thinking through who's your ideal customer. If you're targeting a family, you'll have all kinds of different things. You might talk about the games that are available, or the PlayStation, or how close you are to an ice cream store. If you're targeting couples on a romantic trip, it's going to be a whole different thing, right? So you have to know kind of who your ideal customer is, what you offer that makes your place different. How are you going to reach them? If you use a professional team, they may take care of all of it, but you're still going to have to tell them what you think is special about your place, and they may have other ideas. But if you're doing it yourself, you're going to be writing the copy that goes on Verbo. You're going to be getting those pictures taken. Always use a professional photographer. So, you're going to decide how you do the follow-up once they've been a guest. You're going to decide if you have your own website, like the woman with the 5 cottages, or if you only use distribution. But all those things you go through, whether you have a donut shop or you have a vacation rental or you're doing a marketing consulting business, that's just the step-by-step. And then really importantly, and I think you guys have some courses or talks on that, it's the financial and legal. I mean, this is a business, right? And actually, you're probably better suited to talk about that. Maybe jump in here, because we in the course talk about, the finance and legal, but not specifically for vacation rentals.
Well, it is really interesting in that if you're truly in the place of, you haven't inherited a home that's a family home, and it's, you're in the stage of an investment property, there are now even ways to get different financing, right? It's like investing in an apartment building. You're investing in, and it's a mindset change versus like, oh, I have this vacation home with my family. It's no, this is an investment property that you are going to be getting rental income from. And the business structure of putting that under an LLC, or the different types of financing you can get, you really, changing your mindset, right? And I think that's why your course, thinking in terms of how this 12-week course about how to start a business, it puts you more in that mindset, which is so important to ensuring this is it's successful for you.
Mm-hmm. And we of course have our 42-point checklist, which is a little different because it's not vacation rental, it's business. But yeah, it does. Have you talked to your financial planner? Have you talked to an attorney yet, so you can figure out how you want to structure your business? What certifications do you need, or insurance in the case of vacation rentals, right? All those kinds of things. What contracts do you need? And that's part of the attorney. And the good news is it sounds so overwhelming to all of us, right? I mean, I started my own business a year ago, and I have 2, and I was like, oh, and every time I talk to an attorney, I'm like, even though one of my partners is an attorney, and which is crazy. But the thing is, when you have those checklists, whether it's, industry specific for vacation rentals or business in general. It lets you breathe easier, especially if this is not your full-time job and you're coming and going and starting and stopping. Did I talk to the accountant? Did I structure my business? Am I prepared for taxes? Do I have an accounting software that's going to separate my personal and business expenses? Do I know who my ideal customer is? All of those things are really just step by step by step by step. And for me, and I think most of our students, they breathe a lot easier knowing they're following kind of a process that's been used before, will be used again, and is proven.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that, and that's something we talk about a lot in our classes too, where we get specific, is it really is important to put yourself in this, you're running a business mindset.
Right.
So, oh, I thought we had one more question, but that is the last one. I know we could keep talking for hours because there's so much to this conversation, and hospitality is such a fun side hustle. And yeah, I guess maybe Susan, I'll let you kind of close it out here. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you bet. I'm going to throw a couple ideas out there for people who are just in the early stages. There's a lot of ways you can get into hospitality, even if you don't own a home. So the one I told Heather I was looking at is I have a stock tank pool. And for those of you that don't know, it's literally like an 8-foot cow trough that is 2 feet deep, and you fill it with water. And last year I was stuck at home all summer and it was hot, and I'm in Texas. You just fill it up with water. You put chlorine in it. I've got a hot tub or a heater attached to it, so it can be this huge 8-foot hot tub. It's ridiculous. But there's actually a site where you can rent your pools. And of course, most people are renting, these luxury pools with the waterfalls, but I'm going to try it and see. And I think it would be super fun to host, 2 moms and 2 kids in my backyard, or a family one afternoon. The other thing is I have a friend, and they're starting to talk to people who have land about putting kind of these African tents and yurts on their properties. And there's places other than the Airbnbs of the world that specialize in that. You can also have an RV or a camper, and you can do it in the same kind of hospitality rental. So don't limit your thoughts to, I need a house, or I have to have a condo in Aspen, because if this is of interest to you as a side business, there's a lot of different things. And I don't want to call it the gig economy, because I don't think it really fits that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a property that's on, just a property. So that was the one thing I wanted to say, just to keep people kind of thinking and creative about ways they can either dip their toe in or take a hobby and turn it into more of a monetization.
That is a really good point, that tents, the RVs, and if you have land, how you can monetize that. It just might blow your mind what's out there now.
Right. No, it's crazy.
Having to build a structure or the tent, you can find a partner to do that part, and then it's an income stream for you.
Right. The tiny homes, there's communities and vacation resorts of tiny homes now. There's so much stuff. It's so much fun. All right. So a little bit, I think I've kind of covered me. Can't do it. We help, older professionals start side businesses and also grow them. You can reach out to me at susan@campdoit.com. You can find me. My last name's Tormellon, which I think is on the invite. You can find me on LinkedIn. And then we do have a community for women over 50 who are building businesses. It's small but mighty. There's a lot of fun conversations going on in there. So that happens to be somebody that's watching, check out the Side Hustle Doers community on Facebook.
And to deep dive on more specific education around short-term rental, check out Astra. We have this free membership option and a lot of great courses coming up. So I'll stop sharing, and I think we can wrap there. I don't see any questions in the chat, but again, join the community. Susan's in the community. She also helps us as an instructor, and we're happy to answer questions there. But thanks for joining us today, and we'll post this video and continue to share. And we'll talk again soon, I'm sure, Susan.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Okay, have a good one. Thanks so much. Bye now.